Hi, Bernie Kosar here. Absolutely fired up and excited to be bringing you the second weekly podcast of the Bernie Kosar Show with the top dog, the great Hanford Dixon.
Dog, I like the way that sounds, you know, the Bernie Kosar Show with the top dog, Hanford Dixon. I love it!
Not much is going wrong with that after that season open victory. So excited to be here today talking about our Cleveland Browns, past, present, and future. And after yesterday's second victory, season opening victory of this century since 1999. There'll be 21-1 now since we've come back. We're absolutely fired up to be going over that Carolina Panthers game yesterday and Baker Mayfield coming back. Then absolutely going to be fired up to be going back to the good old days, especially when we played those Jets in double overtime and stuff. So that'll probably lead into us previewing our Jets matchup for the season opener this week and alumni week there, top dog.
Well, BK, it's funny. I was just sitting here thinking, listening to you talk about this whole thing. And can you believe it's been since 2004 since we have won, an opener? I mean, this is insane. I just can't believe it's been that long. But anyway, it wasn't pretty, but we'll take it any way we can get it.
Well, we're going to be going through all that today with our awesome producers, the awesome Gabriella Gab Cruz and Dave Big Play McAllister.
Let's get right to it. I know there's so much to chat about, but like you guys said, it's been a minute since we've had the season opener win. So we're going to kick it off with our opening drive and talk about some of the big plays from yesterday. First things first, let's talk about...
Whenever I turn on the TV, there she is in a commercial, But anyway, we'll get to
Superstar.
We'll get to
We'll
get to the opening drive. I mean, whatever she want to call it. Let's do it. Opening drive.
Let's talk about Baker's performance because I know, Bernie, you were a little nervous about this. This was supposed to be Baker's revenge game. I know, Hanford, you actually went on record and said there's no way he's beating us. But let's break down a little bit what you thought of his performance yesterday.
Yeah, absolutely nervous, a little bit nervous going into the game, actually a lot nervous going into the game. And actually what we saw yesterday from Baker Mayfield was a microcosm of what we've seen in his 4 years here with the Cleveland Browns. The first half with the way it materialized, multiple sacks, multiple fumbles, a lot of 3-and-outs, balls getting batted down. 10 for 19, 101 yards. If it wasn't for a busted coverage on their 2-minute drill, it would have been 9 for 18 for 51 yards. Struggling to get the team in the end zone, struggling to move the ball. All the things that the naysayers for Baker Mayfield would have been in heaven watching the first half, just like us Browns fans were in heaven watching the first half against them. In the second half, the microcosm of it, Baker Mayfield showing that he was a first-round draft pick, being able to make plays down the field, being able to put teams on his back, being able to come back, having a gritty second-half performance to give his team a chance to win. And absolutely, one of the criticisms, I think, Hanford, you could concur, one of the criticisms and issues that even himself would be bummed out about here in Cleveland was that inability to have that 2-minute drive at the end of the game, that inability to make plays at the end to put his team in a position to win. Thankfully, we're sitting here so happy today that Baker actually got that monkey off his chest. He did make that 2-minute drive to get himself in a position for his team to kick that field goal to take the lead, but actually left us a little bit too much time to come back. But I actually think that he was able now to have a little comfortableness in his ability to come back at the end of the game and put himself in a position to win.
And I didn't think Baker was going to play well, but I have to say this, BK, I was actually shocked watching him in the beginning of that ball game because I have to agree with you. I think he was just really, really nervous in the beginning of that ball game because and throughout the ball game because when you looked at it, you talked about the balls that was on the ground. I think he had 4 fumbles, and they were pretty much every single one of them was between the quarterback and the center
Center
exchange.
quarterback exchange.
Yeah, it was between the center and quarterback exchange. Now, one thing happened during the ball game he had no control over. He could do nothing about it. I'm talking about the 5 deflections, the ball where the linemen and linebackers or whoever, they got their hand up.
And to those deflected balls, that's something that absolutely us quarterbacks take, and we talk about and we think about quite a bit. That happened a lot yesterday. That's actually one of the things that I was surprised as a Browns fan, actually really happy as a Browns fan, because when you have a quarterback that you want to get going, yeah, you always want to get them kind of a couple easy completions early. That's absolutely what Carolina Panthers were trying to do yesterday. The thing is, though, our coaches study game film too. They know that they want to get him off and get him comfortable early with short, concise passes. So I love what Joe Woods actually did with just rushing 4 guys early. And actually when Baker Mayfield takes, and shorter quarterbacks take just that 3-step drop on those short 5 to 6 yard quick out throws, which is what Javian Clowney knocked down early. A couple of those deflected passes were just 3-step drops trying to throw 5-yard routes. When I think when you have those type issues, you really need to go vertical down the field, be more aggressive in your play call, and be more aggressive in your throws to help spread the field out. Carolina didn't do that yesterday. And that's where I say it was kind of a microcosm of the Freddie Kitchens offense here, where it's just throw real quick because we're worried about our line and we're worried about the other team's pass rush. So let me just drop quick, get it out of my hands. And our defensive lineman smartly stood around the line of scrimmage and just knocked the ball down. Yeah. Hey, when we're talking about that spike yesterday, that wannabe spike, that delayed spike, one of the reasons I probably implemented the issue with that was when you implement almost an RPO type concept where you're really looking to throw it downfield, yet if it's not there, you're spiking it. The league got smart with me and the Peyton Mannings, and Peyton took it to another level of faking the spike, that when you're going to spike it, so it's not intentional grounding, you have to spike it immediately.
You can't fake it.
You can't fake it. You can't delay.
And that's what he did.
He delayed just a little. I'm a homer now, so I'm not saying it's a penalty, but he delayed a little bit, thinking a little bit. That's pushing the envelope.
I'm a homer
these
too,
days.
but that's a penalty. And I'm happy we got away with it. Now I'm like you. I'm happy too, but it was a penalty. Thank you.
Hey,
thank you.
We're happy to be 2-21-1 on season openers. So we're going to take a break because you and me have seen some fanatically challenging endings to some season openers that we deserve to catch a little break on that, my man. Hey, Hanford, we're talking about that 75-yard touchdown pass to Baker Mayfield's new friend, Robbie Anderson. A lot of talk about it being a blown coverage. Actually, it's a technique-type coverage. What did you see there from a coaching player perspective of that?
I tell you what, BK, you know as well as I do, both of those guys, they have to work together on that coverage. And first thing, let's start with the corner. One thing the corner's got to do, he cannot give that receiver free release. You cannot give him a free release. You have to get your hands on him. You have to jam him. You have to jam him to the inside so he cuts down and just go way to the inside. Pretty much take him right to that safety. While you're doing that, you still have to keep your vision on the outside and make sure nothing is coming towards your outside, which nothing was coming toward the outside. But the most important thing is to get your hands on that wide receiver, and then you jam him to the inside so that safety can pick him up. But, I would, I know what you're thinking, and what everybody else is thinking out there as far as, me, you got guys like Newsom, you got Wards. Do I ever have the opportunity to work with any of these guys? You know what? I don't, because, I don't know, for whatever reason. And I can tell you what, I look at them on a particular play, and I could tell you right away what they did wrong, what happened during that play, why they didn't make the play, why they should have made the play. But no one wants my opinion.
Well, you mentioned it a little bit last week. Sometimes from the coaching player perspective and understanding the players and details of assignment and foot position, hand position, I'm biased and I absolutely concur with you. It's actually even a step further. Not only do we not get the help the the current players. We don't even get to hang around the sponsors and that stuff to keep that away.
Right.
But from the coverage perspective, and this is not a shot at all of the DBs or the staff of not getting a jam on the receiver, or in particular on cover 4, cover 2, 2 deep, 5 under, the slot receiver, they didn't get a jam on. That's actually a trend in the league. I mean, you see that on just about all the teams. God bless Marty Schottenheimer, Dave Adolph, how they coached the details of the assignment. You always got your jam, and you did not get a free release.
And just so everybody knows, the rules today is you have up until 5 yards. You can jam them up until 5 yards. Obviously, when they get past 5 yards, you have to let them go. But you could do what you want to them within that 5-yard range.
And we talked about it last week on the show, and it was highlighted in the game and then around the league. The refs, the referees, they're looking to call that defensive holding penalty post 5 yards. Your only time you're really allowed to get after it, get that physical contact, slow down that speed, is in that jam on that first 5 yards.
BK, you know what? And you hit on it. I mean, we have to. I guarantee you, I give Joe Woods a lot of credit, because when that defense and what they did, him just getting those guys ready to go, making them aware of when Baker's not one of the tallest quarterbacks in the NFL, and if they can't get there with that pass rush, get your hands up in the air and knock those balls down. And as a result, I mean, it came down to 5 deflection. Well, again, he was a little bit nervous, but one thing I have to say, cannot believe that defense gave up only 6 yards in the first quarter. But one thing, as far as the defensive player, I have to say this. I'm going to get on you about this one, because you know, as a defensive player, when you guys out there and you're not playing, you're going 1, 2, 3 and out, we're giving you a dirty look over there. That's solid, and vice versa. You guys are doing the same thing to us. But I know the Carolina Panthers was giving Baker and that offense a dirty look yesterday.
I'm going to absolutely concur with you there. That does transpire. The defense does give you that look. Let me just say, and this isn't a hedge, and let's go back with all the statisticians that we got working here, Gab and Dave, that God rest his soul, I never had 6 yards of total offense in the first half, and I'd have been suicidal if that would be the case, and I would have been giving me that dirty look. So absolutely get that. And to have that inability for Bake and the offense to make plays and only have 6 yards yesterday, if we really had an opportunity to put the nail in the coffin right around halftime, then if they don't get that drive, if we don't really blow the coverage to get that 50-yard throw with the tight end up the seam, that confidence, that dirty look transfers over into halftime and goes into the locker room. When they were able to save face, when he's able to save face with a little bit of a score to come out, and then to be able to come out in the second half and know that they put some points out there, actually made that look a little less. But absolutely, you're so spot on with that.
I have to tell you this, though, and you have to agree with this. You know, whether you like Baker or not, I just thought he threw an absolute dime, an absolutely beautiful pass, talking about the 75-yard touchdown pass he threw to Robbie Anderson. I mean, that was right, hit him right in stride, BK. You have to admit, though, that was a beautiful pass.
That's one of the plays we have up to kind of show and diagram on it. You know, I've been talking a lot, and absolutely it was a gorgeous pass, gorgeous read, absolutely game plan. I'm not picking on people because early in seasons, you're going to have miscommunications. You're going to have pre-snap mistakes, penalties on your offense. You're going to have coverage mistakes in your secondary, like we're talking about the seam that Baker hit for 50 yards to let them get their first touchdown. When you first look at that open touchdown of Robbie Anderson yesterday, which was kind of funny that the Robbie Anderson, he says, I don't want Baker Mayfield to come, and then he hits him on a dime 75 yards downfield, that appeared like it was a broken coverage, why that was open so much. But actually, that's gorgeous game planning versus a quarter's coverage. And when we draw up there how Robbie Anderson got open on the outside guy on a post with the inside slot receiver to that side, putting pressure up on the safety. We're gonna talk through old coach Marty Schottenheimer and how you always got to jam on the slot. You didn't give him free releases to get up on the safety.
Well, that's gonna be interesting. I can't wait to watch that whole thing and see that diagram, because I'm gonna dive into those because that was between Newsome and the free safety on that particular play when they let him just go. But you're right. You can't. I mean, the communication was just horrible on that play between the defensive back and the safety, because I'm sitting there and I'm watching those two guys. And then the first thing you tend to do when that something like that happens, they start pointing at each other, because they know the guys that's calling the game. They're going to say, whoever's pointing, they're going to say, Newsome was expecting help from the safety, and the safety's going to say, he was expecting Newsome to ride that guy all the way. But either way, it's just totally ridiculous play. You cannot give up a 75-yard touchdown in a game like the way we were playing yesterday.
I concur. My concussed brain went off on a tangent about how DBs and people for TV try to deflect criticism, deflect blame by blaming and pointing on that's you. Where were you up over there?
Yeah.
The great Dan Marino had an awesome way of doing this. He would say, he'd go up to his receivers and go yell at him, look like he's yelling, "That's my fault. That's my fault. I blew that one."
Right. And the receiver know it was his, but everybody on TV, you're right. They thinking that Dan is just chewing the receiver out.
I'm gonna get you on that next one, my brother. Exactly. I love it.
I like that. I had to bark at that one. I like that one.
And as we're talking about quarterbacks and homeschool quarterbacks, Gab, what do you think about our guy Jacoby yesterday?
Well, that's what I was going to ask you. You're the quarterback perspective here. I know that Hanford even brought up nerves on Baker's behalf, but probably for Jacoby too. So maybe not his best performance or the best we'll see of him, but let's break down what you thought of him.
We're talking about nerves and stuff, and like life, football players, I think we all want to pretend we're not nervous. We all want to pretend we're cool. Let's be clear. We all get nervous out there, myself included, when you're going to play. Even at the top of your game, there's always that anxiety going on within you. So for Jacoby, for anybody to be a little nervous yesterday, that's absolutely understandable. He got the W. That's all that matters. He got the W. I think absolutely it shows that when you don't have preseason and you're new to a system, you're new to a team, you're rusty early. It was both teams offensively early in the game yesterday. It was tough. Too bad offense for both teams. Awesome to be able to run the ball. But how Jacoby handled himself at the end, I really was awesome and proud and excited for him to see that raw emotion. People said he's crying, he can't do that. I love it. You'll see me crying too.
Well, that's what I was just getting ready to say to you. I mean, tell me, what, are you happy? Are you proud of him because he showed some emotions, practically cried after the game? I mean, I've had some concerns about Jacoby. You remember I talked about it. I told you this. I said I had some concerns about him. This guy just haven't won me over yet. And after watching him, he still has not won me over, because when you look at him, I think he averaged 4.3 yards per attempt. You look at, and I'm going to talk about two of his supposedly be main targets. You're talking about Amari Cooper and then Njoku. Those guys, I think they had 4 catches for a total of 24 yards. A total of 24 yards now. Sure, he came back and at the end and he had the little drive. I mean, I think DPJ caught a few passes. I think he had 5 receptions. He caught
6
some.
catches, 60 yards.
He did some good things. But I mean, let's face it. Let's hear the truth here.
Yeah, let's hear
and
the
the truth is, if you look at the lineman took his guy and pushed him back into the quarterback, and they call roughing the quarterback. Now, there's an extra 15 yards right there. Then, I don't know if we can talk about this right now. We're going to talk about it later. But Jacoby, well, yeah, we're talking about Jacoby Brissett. Why am I going to wait and not talk about this? Jacoby Brissett, they should have called a penalty on him, and you know as well as I do, that is illegal what he did, because he looked at Cooper first, and to see where Cooper was, and then he came back and tried to spike that ball. Now, I want to hear you talk about that spike because I know it was not legal.
So I absolutely love your preparation. I absolutely love how you got your facts down perfectly and your stats down. So beautiful and stuff. But please, let's screw this up with the facts here now. Okay, let's talk more macro here. And in the spirit of levity, I actually concur with just about everything you said there. I'm not just saying that to be nice and stuff. But from a more macro side of it, I absolutely love, and from the teammate perspective and in the locker room, all those things need to be worked on. Yes, he was rusty. The team, I think, around him was rusty. The receivers aren't integrated just yet. Amari Cooper didn't play in preseason. He's got to get his football legs underneath him. But from whether or not the storm of the next 10 games and the 11 games that we've been fixated on with Deshaun being suspended, again, I'm not trying to over-dramatize just making a play or two. And you're right, it was just a couple of plays hitting Donovan Peoples-Jones on the 2-minute drive, hitting Anthony Schwartz on a 3rd down in the 4th quarter to get a field goal. There's just a handful of plays, but that emotional crying at the end, getting choked up, kind of the inability to do some of the press conferences afterwards, I actually think it really showed his teammates, and it absolutely showed me that winning matters, that he cares. And I know that's we say people that we all care, but when you genuinely show that raw emotion, I think it's going to help galvanize this team to hopefully keep this us against the world
Well,
mentality.
he can show that raw emotions, but I think what he should have done is he should have went up personally to all those offensive linemen who was on their game and just pull those guys and say, look, right now, I don't care what you guys get ready to do. Grab your family, your wives, or whatever. I'm taking everybody out because I tell you what, he was sacked only once. Throughout the entire game, he was hit only 4 times. 4 times was he hit, and we're not even going to, I guess we're going to get into it a little bit later.
For our O-line, for Coach Callahan. Oh God. To hell, I was even more nervous with Conklin being out, and then the swing tackle, Hubbard, not being there. So Hudson, who really had issues against speed rushers last year, and now we're up against Brian Burns, the 9.5 sacks last year, speed rushers, 3 of them for Carolina. All kinds of things were stacked up negatively for him. So our O-line absolutely stood the test yesterday.
Well, I could tell you this. You and I, right now, could have rushed behind that line yesterday. You and I. And that's saying something. If you and I could rush behind that line, that offensive line was really doing a good job.
Right. Those are some. Okay, all right. He's spitting the facts out here. Speaking of facts, Hanford wants to get out there. Okay, what did you guys think of Stefanski's play calling? He got Schwartz involved a little bit. What are your thoughts there?
From the Coach Stefanski, and the play calling, you've seen a lot of that through the year. Last year and through the preseason about debating the play calling, guessing on game planning and how you structure plays through the game. Anthony Schwartz, God, we talked about it last week. Everybody through training camp, we crucified him. We put the nails in the coffin. We threw the hammer away, and we buried that coffin. For Chad O'Shea, the wide receiver coach, for Alex Van Pelt, the offensive coordinator, to implement a game plan, and for Coach Stefanski to implement ways to get his confidence in there, to put him in there. We talked last week about the creative personnel groups, motions and shifts that the Browns like to do. Coach Stefanski likes to put in with the backs and with the tight ends. He implemented a really cool personnel group with Anthony Schwartz he's knowing he's having trouble in the running game, and catching the ball and then getting open. So he implements him into the running game with a jet sweep and a reverse to kind of get his confidence going. And then he has his confidence, and he's able to make a play on 3rd down in the 4th quarter to make a catch.
Well, yeah, Anthony Schwartz, my hat's off to him. My hat's off to him yesterday, and you're right. All the points you hit on, you're exactly right with him. I think he gave him 2 reverses, I think, of a total of 20 yards, and it got him going, got him in what we call in the flow of the ball game. And because we know this kid is fast. We know this kid, and I agree with Kevin Stefanski and everybody else. I'm not ready to give up on this kid yet. Even though we drafted him, I think he's going to contribute to this ball club. He's going to contribute on offense, and I think as each week goes on, hopefully he's going to get better. But as far as the play calling, I think it was all right. I'm not going to give him an A+ or anything like that on that because I think a lot of times when he's trying to throw the football, we're able to run the football. Let's keep that going. I mean, he's got a I know a little football. Stefanski knows some football, but he's got to understand at quarterback he doesn't have a Bernie Kosar throwing the football. I mean, he doesn't have Dan Marino throwing the football. He doesn't have a John Elway throwing the football. And this is no slight on Jacoby Brissett. I mean, this guy, he's coming out and he's giving you everything that he's got, and he threw some good balls. Mm-hmm. I mean, but as far as the play calling, I'm not going to give him a A. Sure, we got the win. He got us the win. Let's give him credit with that. But I guarantee you, he was worried over there.
Well, I'm with you on. I must talk more about the Anthony Schwartz in terms of how the play calling got him implemented into the game, so that Anthony Schwartz was able to have a productive day yesterday. Absolutely, the play calling overall. Hey, just like us players need to get our game feet under us, coaches and game planning and coaches and play calling and understanding each team, each year, your team is different. So understanding who you are and who your team is, the play calling stuff tends to come along with that too. And that's actually one of the other plays I think we had drawn up.
See, what a lot of people, we just want to make sure you guys understand this, what you probably don't know, maybe you know, maybe you don't know. And BK, you could hit on it real quick. But as an offensive coordinator, regardless who the offensive coordinator, whether he's the head coach or just a Van Pelt, an offensive coordinator out there, what these guys do, they script. Before the beginning of each ball game, they script. But how many plays, Bernie? Is it about?
So some teams would script their first 10 to 15 plays.
Right.
Our teams tends to be 15 to 20.
Yeah, they script these plays to try to get a feel what you say to get in a groove for the ball game. But again, I'm not giving him an A.
So that's where the scripting of some of those plays. Like an end to the play calling, and I'll start. I kept my play calls and I kept some of my game plan sheets, and I'll bring them in through the course of the next couple of weeks and stuff to show you with it. But just like one of the plays we have to talk about today in terms of the play calling, there was a situation, whether it's scripting the first 10, 15, 20 plays of the game, or you script sit down and distance situations. So a situation that came up a lot yesterday was 3rd and 2, 3rd and 3, 3rd and 4. How you call plays in those 3rd and 2, 3rd and 3 situations. We had a situation yesterday with Nick Chubb and stuff. We have it up here on screen right now. So 3rd and 2, 3rd and 3. In the old days when we were playing back in the 80s around the 50-yard line, that's almost 75, 80% of the time a throwing type situation because we're going to punt the ball if you don't get it. In today's new NFL with data analytics and an awesome running game, teams are going for it on 4th down now. So how you call plays yesterday when it's 3rd and 3, 3rd and 4, you have really 2 downs now to get that, which really encourages yourself to be more physical and have the ability to run the ball.
Well, you know what I say? I say the hell with those analytics. I said the hell with the way they're calling the game because Stefanski made me mad one time yesterday. I mean, he was getting ready to go for it on 4th down. I thought he had lost his mind. I mean, totally lost his mind because I think the only thing saved us was they called Rude and those guys, they called a timeout. And that gave Stefanski time enough to think about this whole thing, and then he changed his mind. He didn't go for it because if he would have gone for it and not made it, the field position would have just been great for the Carolina Panthers. So, when these guys on these 4th downs, I don't know. I think what you have to do is you have to get a feel for your quarterback. You're on the field. You know whether or not you got them on their heels and whether or not it's the time to go for it on 4th downs. But
But I like even taking a step in front of that. what you do on third down is predicated on what you may or may not do on fourth down. So like yesterday, we had some 3rd and 3s, and we weren't sure how Jacoby was handling it, how the receivers were getting open. Our running game was massively successful yesterday. Like the play we just had up on 3rd and 3, you have the fronts. And you have the safeties lined up deep in the 12 yards and cheating away from it. To run Nick Chubb left and get 20 yards like that. Or to have, like on the touchdown run by Kareem Hunt. We talked on the show last week, Chief David Njoku's been catching some flack sometimes about dropping passes. He has athleticism down the field. What he's been able to do in the blocking run game, in the power O game, has been something that's really helps our running game. It was clear yesterday situations like that came up, like on the running game, where you got offense line gashing holes.
Okay, guys, we're going to kick it back to the old days because everybody likes to tune in to see or to hear about your stories, and we're going to have plenty of those on the show. Check us out on Twitter, our mid-show plug. Okay, so some of the fans on Twitter asking about the Jets' double overtime where, Bernie, you get sacked by Gastineau. That playoff game. Let's bring us back in time and bring us to that moment.
Boy, I tell you what, that's one of my favorite games because you talk about the dog pound going crazy. I mean, just going crazy. And I always talk about how we draw a lot of energy from those guys, but this particular day, it was just absolutely crazy. And BK, first of all, you okay? Because that's when, I remember Gastineau hitting you right in the head.
Well, between that Gastineau shot, actually, you can see I'm wearing a shirt today from that era. Had Gastineau, Lawrence Taylor. This is Michael Kosar, who decapitated part of me and a couple of broken ribs there. But that game, the magnitude of that game, that was the first playoff win of the Browns that we had in that decade, really. And to be able to come back and have that hit, have that experience, and survive it to be here today, absolutely is apropos for the excitement that we're all feeling after a season opening victory and stuff. But that game was, if we want to get into a ton of detail about it, which obviously with my elevated enthusiasm, I don't mind doing that.
You didn't throw 2 interceptions that game, did you?
Well, that's for I would rather talk about the winning stuff and all the ultimate end result, which is what us quarterbacks are judged on. But so it's actually like me and you did a production meeting beforehand, and you teed me up because that's actually where I was going was. I love to talk on this show. You want to talk about the high points, the positive stuff, but in reality, a kind of a life lesson for me is really looking at some of the negative things and really facing them head on. Heck, almost like my sign behind me, scrambling. Scrambling is the opposite of running away. It's facing your problems head on. And in that game, we were going to beat the Miami Dolphins the year before in the playoffs. We had them 21-3 at halftime. They appeared to be the better team, supposedly. We were the young team. I actually thought we were better that year. But in my rookie year, I'm so proud to have won the division. I'm proud to have been playing in a playoff game, but we lost. So I'm not happy about that. Now you fast forward. Here we got the Jets double overtime game. We got the game that isn't going to go into overtime because I had thrown back-to-back picks in the fourth quarter, which is like sacrilegious for you young quarterbacks to do that. Thou shalt not throw picks when you're at the 1 yard line and about to score.
I think that's the first time I ever saw the dog pound mad at you.
It was the quietest the dog pound was. So here you are. You almost have your life flashing in front of you to where, man, you don't want to end this season. You don't want to be responsible for the guy. We were talking about earlier in the show, Top Dog, about you don't want the defense looking at you when you only had 6 total yards of total offense. I never did that. I didn't know what that feeling was. I did know what the feeling was of blowing and throwing 2 picks in the fourth quarter, and you guys are so cool, but nobody really wanted to make eye contact with me. And if there was a hand grenade that would have went off around me, there was nobody around me but Danielson. So to have that play, to have that kind of roughing the quarterback call happen, giving us a little secondary life to make those plays and then come back it really was one of the kind of foundational things that led me on to never quitting, and always believing in yourself and always coming back.
On a serious note, though, I'll say this.
I was serious.
One thing about us, and I was talking about those 2 interceptions. One thing about us, we win as a team. We lose as a team.
Oh, not one person was
never. We
Exactly.
we don't blame our teammates. We all take the blame, and that's the way it works. And that'd be a good thing for those kids out there today. Just remember this: football is a team sport. You win as a team, you lose as a team. BK, I was sitting here and I was just thinking about this because, we were talking about that spiking and him spiking the football where it should have been a penalty and all this, and I was just going back to some of our practice days and. I don't know if you remember this, but you used to make us mad as hell in practice. I mean, you used to make us mad. Actually, you are the cover. You
came up with that. It's funny as we're doing our podcast. We're not trying to take credit for the invention of football and how it's played and stuff, but I was, again, with my limited athleticism, my kind of inability to run and stuff, I did not want to waste plays. I did not want to give up plays. So in 1985, I'm reflecting back on 2-minute drives, almost like we're talking about with Jacoby yesterday and Baker coming through with his 2-minute drives of what could I do better at those. And in the offseason, 1985, I noticed on these like spike plays, clock plays, that the defenses, everybody's standing around. So I went to implement a play and a way to maybe take advantage of, yes, when you spike or clock it, it takes maybe a second and a half to do that. If you time it up perfectly and in a well-run offense, you could run the 6-yard out in 1.7 seconds. You should be able to get out of bounds in 2.1 seconds. So to the ability to, even yesterday, I really looked at it, and I think we may have we could maybe find the play up there. But if you look at the fake spike play that we had, that yes, by the rules we've created now so many rules by doing that actually probably is a penalty not to do that. But in 1986, we came up with, and me and Gary Danielson in the meeting rooms came up with this after right around this time of the year, like week 3, week 4 in September, of how in 2-minute drills to practice and take a quick out if they're off, or eventually you guys started getting mad at me because we were taking the quick out and we were getting 6-8 yards and only taking 2.1, 2.4 seconds.
And then if we came on that out, you was going to hit us with that deep
right,
one.
So instead of yesterday's 58-yard field goal, which our boy Cade York made it, God bless, that's amazing. But statistically, instead of having a 58, a 55-yard field goal, you hit 1 or 2 of those spike plays. Now it's statistically you're kicking a 40-yard field goal, 45-yard field goal. And then you would get so grumpy, you guys started coming up, then we would throw the fade off of that.
Well, Big Dog, we can't end this show without talking a little bit about those Jets. I mean, obviously that's our opponent that's coming up this week. The Jets had a big game. They played the Baltimore Ravens. I was talking to Ozzie, and he said, I was shocked to know that they just took the train over to New Jersey to play those guys. And we know the Ravens handled them pretty convincingly. What do you think about this ball game?
Well, I first, there's a hidden fact that the New York Jets have not won a regular season game in the month of September in the last 4 years. So let's keep that streak alive.
So you like our chances?
So let's keep that alive. The Jets and Coach Robert Saleh, the defensive specialist, coming from the 49ers, he had a massive pass rush there. He's trying to implement that massive pass rush with the Jets. The Baltimore Ravens have a phenomenal running game. The Jets do a good job of rotating their defensive line. They got depth at their defensive line. That worked out well for them yesterday. But and I'm not trying to dump on Joe Flacco, but Joe Flacco's struggling.
Yeah,
I mean, oh my God,
Yeah.
that offense is struggling. They're somewhat thin at playmakers. Joe Flacco, like myself, were a dead man walking in that pocket with our pass rush right there. And when you could get pressure, and Coach Woods, again, I know he took some flack for it, but when you could just rush 4 and get your defensive ends coming up the field and nailing like that, you're in really golden shape. I actually think we could actually probably see a Mike White type QB change. You know, the Western Kentucky Hilltopper came in last year when Zach Wilson was hurt. So,
well, this is a game I think that we should be able to move the football on them. Talking about offensively, because you look at Lamar Jackson. I mean, obviously he threw 3 touchdown passes on him, and I'm telling you, they wasn't short touchdown passes. They were long touchdown passes, and you hit on it. They have Baltimore has a pretty good running game. They like to run the football. We like to run the football, so we should be able to obviously run the football on them. But when I look at it, we got a golden opportunity this week to be 2-0 because I cannot see the Jets beating us. Plus, we have them at home. And another good thing, this is alumni weekend. Everybody will be in town. All the boys will be in town. And can't lose on alumni weekend. So I'm kind of looking forward to this one. But, my man, I tell you what, you and I are
massively looking forward to it, and not trying to be a homer, but the schedule gods and the football gods matched us up perfectly from a football perspective and X&O perspective. The Cleveland Browns match up awesome against the New York Jets. So this is a game. This is almost what we used to joke about. This is almost like you used to say a get-right game.
You and I, another good show.
You matter. Go Browns.